Welcome to Art Talk. It's where art and artists come together. The show is hosted by our own Floatin Fred. During each show, he talks to local artists and goes out on the street to visit some of our Valley residents. With Fred, you never really know what's going to happen. That's pretty good. And here's our host, Floatin Fred.
Hi, welcome to Art Talk. I'm your host, Floatin Fred. This is a show dedicated to art and the people that make it. It's brought to you, produced by the Valley Arts Council. And today my guest is Lisa Toto, photographer, and artist, and you're also a teacher.
Yep.
Public school system.
Yep.
And I want to welcome you to the show. Thanks so much for
Thank
being
you.
on. So, tell me, what are some of your inspirations for your photography?
My hero, my inspiration since I became a photographer is Annie Leibovitz.
Yes, very popular. Very
Fantastic. She's
How long have you
fantastic.
been a photographer?
Since I picked up a camera when I was a sophomore in college, which was
Last year.
which was the same age that her career started last
Really?
year. Yes, it was the same year she started. She went on a journalistic tour with the Rolling Stones, and she followed them for a little over a year. It was in 1975.
That's when they were dangerous.
Yeah.
That was a tough job.
Yes.
Yeah.
But she covered them. It got published in Rolling Stone magazine. Her year-long.
Isn't that unique? The Rolling Stones in
Yeah.
Rolling Stone.
Yeah.
No affiliation.
But that's how she started, and I always had it in my head that I was going to try to follow her track, because my natural eye is to be a photojournalist or a documentary photographer. So I had the opportunity when I was shooting for the Bridgeport Post at the time. It was called the Post. It was called
I
Bridgeport
remember
at the time.
Bridgeport Post.
And Telegram. Do you remember the morning paper and the afternoon paper?
Actually, we always had two papers. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Now you can't even find one paper.
I know. It's all online now.
Everything's like a 24-hour cable news.
Yeah. Yes.
Shh, unbelievable. I do remember the morning paper and the afternoon paper and the Sunday paper.
Yes.
Wow, that was a big paper.
Well, when I was shooting for the paper, I would accumulate comp time, and I used to take that comp time and my press badge and go shoot other stories. I've been all over the world, and back then the hot spot for news was the Iron Curtain, East and West Berlin, and the Soviet Union. Back then it was called the Soviet Union.
That's right.
And I
USSR.
used to book trips like that with my comp time, but there came a time where I came across a young teenager who was a student at Bunnell High School. When I met her, she was a quadriplegic, and she became that way through tornadoes. She was up in the hills in Hamden with her church youth group. They were camping, and a tornado blew through the site, and the rangers didn't get them out of there in time, and she only had her tent. It was her and her sister. She was 16, her sister was 12, I think, and trees fell on the tent.
Do you know, I recall that story.
Killed her sister,
Oh my
and
God.
made her a quadriplegic. And I was so inspired by this young woman that I wanted to cover the rest of her schooling at Bunnell High School.
Sure.
She wound up keeping up with her schooling and graduated on time with her class. So she never, even though she went through all these health issues, she never missed out. She always continued her studies. And
That's amazing. That's fantastic.
she always thought that she was going to walk again, contrary to what the doctors had said. So I embedded myself into that family for her senior year in high school, and I missed a lot of my own family's celebrations because I was with her family. And I didn't get paid for it. I used my comp time. But I sold it.
Labor of love.
I sold it back to the newspaper, to the Post, for clean. Not for money, but I wanted 3 clean sheets in the paper for the story. So
That's some more comp time.
hundreds and hundreds of pictures I went through for that story, and they published, I think it was 15 images. So whittled down to 15 images. It
Over a span of her life of how long?
over her senior year in high school.
Wow.
And it kind of was amusing because after we did the layouts and the stories, there were 3 stories connected to it. The reporter did a story about her senior year. They asked me to write about how the whole project came about, and they asked Melanie to write a letter to her sister.
Wow.
It was,
Who perished?
yes, it was very tear-jerking. But the paper got published, and while we were putting together the layout, now I can get into it.
Okay.
Go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. So anyways, before I go any further, I do understand that you were nominated for a Pulitzer Prize. Tell us a little bit about that.
That story was the Pulitzer nomination.
The story of Melanie.
Right.
Amazing.
After it was published, my managing editor came to me and he said, we are going to nominate 2 stories this year for a Pulitzer. One was an investigative series of stories. I forget what the reporters, they basically blew the whistle on somebody, and I don't remember. I wish I could remember. It was somebody in the Bridgeport government.
What did I do?
So he said that was one nomination, and the Melanie Bike story was the other nomination
Wow.
for a feature picture story.
Have you ever thought about going back and maybe revisiting Melanie? Or?
I thought of that, but I found out that her family moved to Utah. They were Mormons, and that was their ultimate where they wanted to be. They were waiting for Melanie to finish her high school career here.
Yeah, it's interesting.
She wanted to be an occupational therapist, and her main goal was to be able to walk. But even if she couldn't walk, she wanted to be an occupational therapist and help others like her therapist had helped her.
Wow, that's an amazing story. I could understand why that's just in pictures alone a Pulitzer Prize nominated.
It was a fantastic
photographer.
Experience.
Yeah, well, hey, who knows? You could. I've seen some of your work, and you could very well get nominated again. I'll nominate you. Anyway, I do understand you have some amazingly talented students, and they do a yearly exhibition of their work at the Valley Arts Council Gallery, which is now on Main Street in Ansonia. And what's your inspiration to your students? Or how are you inspired by your students?
I'm not sure I am their inspiration. At Amity, you give the kids a little information and they fly with it. And these students that are showing at the gallery are the advanced students in the advanced photo students in the art department.
Primarily photography.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Black and white, color.
They floor me. They are my inspiration. And once they started shooting, in my opinion, better than me, I had to up my game. So I would do the assignments right along with them.
Cool.
And when we would have critiquing sessions, I would stick my photo in with the group with their photos, and we would sit and talk, and they would always say, "Who shot that? I did anybody shoot that? And I would wait for them to critique my work before I told them that's mine.
Interesting.
Yes.
Do you have a preference over black and white or color, or do your students have any preferences on that?
It depends. I have one student where she exclusively shoots black and white.
Mm-hmm.
She sees in black and white.
That's very interesting.
It's a very fascinating thing to have a kid that has a digital camera to be able to shoot fantastic photographs in black and white, to be able to see the lights, darks, and the medium shades.
Absolutely, yeah.
She's, I'm going to be losing her. She's a senior.
Unless
But
you fail her, and then you can... No, we're kidding. She won't fail.
she actually wants to...
She's watching the show. You're not getting failed.
She wants to become a special effects makeup artist.
And I think that's a growth field. I think in television and in film, Hollywood. So
That's her goal. And she does amazing work on herself, and then takes self-portraits, brings them in and shows them to the class.
Do you have a preference for black and white or color? If you had to just pick one.
I'm not really sure. It actually depends on what you're shooting, what you're shooting, what your subject is.
But if you had to just pick one.
You can't. That's like asking me what my favorite color is. Because as an artist,
But you gotta have one.
you don't have a favorite
have a
color.
favorite color.
For every different thing I do, there's a different color that goes with it.
Do you think black and or white is a color?
No, they are not.
So then black and white photography is not color. That was pretty good. I figured that out all by myself. Hey, you've shot film, of course.
Yes.
And do you miss film? Because film seems to be a passé medium now.
I don't
Everything's
miss having to carry all that film around in my camera bag, because it would just make everything heavier. I miss darkroom. I miss black and white darkroom work.
I miss the smell of the dark. I used to, the chemicals, and it was just a lot of fun. But how about the cost factor? I mean, do you find that digital is much more time saving, but is it also economic?
Well, it depends. I think it all evens out, because what you spent in chemicals and paper and film,
And time.
you spend now in equipment, because the equipment is more expensive, and you printing your work, so you're spending money on ink and paper anyway. So it all kind of evens out as far as expense goes.
Wow, it's very interesting. Lisa, let me ask you, for our audience, what other types of artwork do you do?
God,
I've seen a lot of your mediums, and I know it's more than photography.
yeah, I do a little bit of everything. That expression, jack of all trades, master of nothing.
Yes, I think I invented it.
Well, you and your work has inspired me to do work with found objects and do mixed media.
Just stick with over-the-counter drugs.
I like to make some jewelry.
I've seen some of that, yeah.
Lately, I've been working on taking sheet metal and making beads out of them.
Very interesting.
And I like to try to sell the jewelry on Etsy. I think it's a trip when you sell a piece of work.
It is.
It's
I think
exciting.
It validates you.
Yeah.
And money shouldn't be a validate in any art. Shouldn't be the validator, but it's just the idea someone's willing to give.
Yes,
something of
that's
value.
it. Yes.
And it is a validating thing. It just it's an amazing thing.
I also do stuff like book binding. I make books, journals.
I've seen those bindings with the albums.
Yeah.
We got to have her back on the show, because you have got to see these album binders. It's pretty, very unique, very amazing, and it's really cool. If you understand vinyl records, or if you've seen, you don't have to understand, but if you've seen
Well,
vinyl records.
that's found object art.
Well, yeah, It is, and
Have you
I
used
found
vinyl
some
in your
objects.
work?
I have, yeah.
See?
I have, yes. One, I've seen your series too that you did on the watercolor trays, and it was just
The watercolor tins, yep.
yeah, it was just an amazing thing. Now, if you're not familiar with watercolor tins, you won't understand this medium, but once you see them, it's quite a thing. I remember we used to always get one at the beginning of the year in art class, and we would get the brush and it had the whole little thing there.
Yeah, when we were kids, they made them out of tin. Now they
did?
make them out of plastic. So.
Everything's plastic.
Yeah,
I wonder why
I
the
prefer the
oceans are
tins.
full of plastic. Let's go back to tin. You can cut yourself on. No, take that out. That's sick. Lisa, let me ask you. Do you have a favorite artist, and if so, who?
Well, it's Annie Leibovitz.
Annie Leibovitz.
If you're talking about
Photography.
fine, that's Annie.
Okay.
If you're talking about a fine artist, Van Gogh is my favorite.
Vincent Van Gogh.
Yes.
And I mean, is there any particular reason you were pulled toward his work?
Everything that he did was done out of emotion, and you can
Yeah.
just tell by the colors and the sporadic nature of how he put the paint on the canvas.
Yeah.
Every piece of artwork that, not necessarily my photography, but my art is done all out of emotion. A lot of color.
I seen that, yes,
A lot-
especially in your photography, but in your other mediums too.
Yes, a lot of whimsy in my work outside of photography.
If your students are watching, kids, you are very lucky to have Lisa as your teacher.
Our community is often defined by its access to the arts, by its presence or by its absence. The Valley Arts Council represents the 7 municipalities that make up the lower Naugatuck Valley region. It was formed for the purpose of creating and promoting a connecting thread between those among us who are artists and those who have an interest in experiencing the arts. Sometimes the only difference between a life full of art and a life void of art is simply its accessibility. Our mission is to ensure that the contribution that the arts make to one's life is recognized, valued, and realized. Visit our Main Street Gallery in downtown Ansonia, right across from City Hall.
Today, my guest is Carrie Camara. She's a very unique artist. She is a CZT teacher and a wonderful painter. Carrie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're here, because it wouldn't be no fun without her being here. Carrie, where are you from?
Originally from Shelton, but I live in Oxford.
You live in Oxford, Connecticut.
Mhm.
That's amazing. And what in the world is CZT?
I'm a certified Zentangle teacher.
Zentango.
Yep.
Certified Zentango.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I am able to teach people pattern art and have them find their inner artist.
Very good. And what's behind you there? That is a sample of Zentango?
Yeah. That's a piece that I did.
So it's kind of like symmetry, repeated. And
Yeah. We're all patterns. It's all about the Zentangle method, one stroke at a time, and you, as you lay down each stroke of the pen, you build patterns and make little creations.
Very interesting. It's quite a unique art form. And I guess there is therapeutic value in it.
Yeah.
Adults, children, or
Absolutely.
Anybody.
I've taught 4-year-olds to 90-year-olds.
to 90-year-olds.
Yes.
That's pretty, there's entanglement.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Let me ask you, how does one become a certified Zentangle teacher?
I attended a seminar in Providence, Rhode Island, where I, along with about 108 other people from around the world, became certified. It was a weekend course through Rick Roberts and Maria Thomas.
Very interesting. Because quite honestly, I've seen like pattern art before, but I never really knew it was Zentangle. So that's very interesting. It's catching on.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, what else can you Zentangle?
Oh goodness, lots of things. When you learn to Zentangle, or you learn the Zentangle method, you start off with a 3.5-inch square tile, but then you can go on to anything. I've done a coffee table, I've done pumpkins, I've done...
Pumpkins?
Yeah, little pumpkins, and
And anybody can Zentangle?
anyone can do it.
Wow, that's very interesting.
It's a lot of fun to have the non-artist try it.
Yeah, I could imagine.
Yeah.
Do you like to create anything else?
Yes, I do needle felting. So I make little critters and gnomes and different things with needle felting.
I've seen those.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's almost like finger puppets.
yeah,
They could, or they,
yeah.
yeah.
Little monks, and they're fun.
Wow. And what's your inspiration for Zentangle and the finger puppets?
So so Zentangle. Actually, I was at a scrapbooking retreat, and they offered a class, so I took it. And by the end of the class, I knew that it was something I wanted to teach and bring to other people, because I always wanted to be an art teacher, and that my life just didn't work that way. So I now am an art teacher teaching Zentangle, which is really kind of fun. And
Life is funny like that
it
sometimes.
is. I always loved hyperrealism, and Zentangle's actually freed me so that I can do more abstract art.
And what's the longest it ever taken you to do one piece? How do you know when you're finished?
The longest, well, you could do a small piece in about an hour, you know,
Really?
start to finish. This piece here probably took me about 4 hours.
Oh, 4 hours. Boy, it looks
Yeah.
like it's very labor intensive.
It's actually, once you start with the pattern development, it just flows.
And I would guess coffee would help in this art. Yeah. Let me ask you, Carrie, who's your favorite artist?
Growing up, Norman Rockwell.
I remember Norman
Yeah,
Rockwell's
yeah.
work.
I loved his whimsy. I loved the stories his pictures told. And of course, I loved realism and whatnot. But M.C. Escher has really been cool to follow and see his work. So he's another.
Right, and it seemed like some of his work was quite, well, it wasn't quite as intense in pattern, but it seemed to have like a yin and yang to
Yeah,
it, left and
yes.
right. Where does it begin and where does it end?
Yeah.
It was very interesting stuff. So, Care, besides the course that was taken where you were certified in Providence, where else did you go to school?
Well, Shelton High School.
Shelton High,
So,
right?
local.
They got a great art program.
Yeah. I went through all 4 years of their art program.
Well, 4 years.
So, I love the art class. But I'm not formally trained, anywhere beyond that. I do like to participate in a lot of art retreats. So I get to learn newer techniques, and actually I've taken classes through Valley Arts Council.
I often wonder why they call them retreats. It's like you're retreating.
Oh my goodness, it's just wonderful.
Some of the best artists, and I consider you one of the better ones, never really had formal training. Very,
That's what
it's
I'm
funny
learning.
how that is.
That's what I'm learning.
Yeah, and this seems like such a unique and a unique medium. I mean, and it is catching on. So it's ZT.
CZT.
Oh, CZT. All these letters. Jeez, tell us a little bit more about Zentangle, the history of it.
Okay, it's relatively new. It was developed by a calligrapher, Maria Thomas, and a monk, Rick Roberts.
And a monk.
Mhm.
Interesting.
And she was in the studio illuminating a letter, and he was trying to get her attention, and he couldn't get her attention. And he's like, "What were you doing? You were so deeply involved in your piece." And she goes, "I was just kind of going with the flow." And he goes, "I don't know that I've ever been able to meditate that deeply."
Really? Meditating kind of like in your work.
Yeah, yeah. So you just
Wow.
get lost in the Zentangle method, which is where I, as a Zentangle teacher, teach students to go through the process with starting with frames and then line patterns and whatnot, and they learn to make little pieces of art.
Carrie, let me ask you. I mean, that seems like 2 or 3 colors there. Is there any color limit to Zentangle, or do you basically stick with your basic colors?
No, the purists will just use graphite, a micron, and a tortillon, so to shade. But it's fun to bring other colors in because it gives other dynamics to to the work.
Do you think there could be too many colors around it?
No,
No,
art's
never
always
too-
colorful.
Always colorful. How about, it almost seems like it'd be a very interesting art form that would start or could possibly catch on in the world of body art, tattoos.
Oh, I agree.
We have an artist
Absolutely.
coming on that has a lot of tattoos.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, that seems like that'd be, but it'd be a very intricate work, I would assume.
Yeah.
Yeah, for any tattoo artist or any artist. I guess you need fine line to do that. Can't do it with crayons. Crayons ain't gonna work, folks.
Well, my kindergartners have used crayon.
Have
Yes,
they?
they have.
Wow.
Yeah.
So don't throw your crayons away.
No.
If you want to stop. No, that's Zentangle. Can be done with just about any.
Anything.
How about Zentangle like in tin foil to make like,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, that could
Then you
be.
put ink over it, and then you get things to highlight and shadows and.
You know, Carrie, just looking at some of the works, it reminds me a lot of back in the day. There was a toy called Spirograph. Do you remember Spirograph?
Yes.
Do you remember Spirograph out there? Spirograph was amazing. And while it doesn't have that linear type Spirograph look, it has a little bit of a Spirograph feel to it.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
does.
I wonder if they'll ever come out with the Zentangle Spirograph.
They might.
Wow, very interesting.
I have a story about that.
Do you?
Yeah, there's
Please tell us.
a student that I was working with that, because I work with special needs kids,
Mhm.
and he needed some encouragement, so we were playing with Spirograph.
Really?
And then I brought him into Zentangle, and by the end of the year, he was actually assisting me with the class,
No.
teaching Zentangle.
That's amazing.
40 minutes on a Friday afternoon, second graders were silent.
Really?
Yes.
Silent second graders.
Silent.
That's impossible. Well, Robitussin doesn't even do that. I don't know how you do that. I remember the Spirograph too, getting off the subject of course, but I remember the Spirograph when you used to go outside the big ring.
Yes.
And it would never stay in the
No,
ring.
it always skipped.
That used to really tick me off. Tell us about this kit.
So by taking a class for the Valley Arts Council, I provide you with this Zentangle kit, which comes with all the tools that you need. The class takes you through the whole Zentangle method, and you'll leave with actual pieces of art.
Gee, I might even be interested in taking this class.
I would love to teach you.
Zentangle. Well, it's amazing. They say you can't teach old dogs new tricks.
I could teach you.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Zentangle art. Floatin Fred, Zentangle artist. It's got kind of a ring to it. It's a very long ring, but it's a ring nonetheless. Yeah, it's amazing. Once again, thank you for being on the show. That's an amazing, it really is. I get hypnotized. It's almost like hypnotic, some of the work.
It's very peaceful when you're making it.
Yeah, I wonder if you could do it on felt and have it like the black light, fluorescent.
I've done it with fluorescent gel pens,
Have you?
and then it glows in the black light.
Oh, I love glow in the black light stuff.
Oh yeah.
I still got my glow in the dark Elvis. Oh
Nice.
yeah, oh yeah, that was good. That is really yeah, or foil. That would be interesting too. Engraving, Zentangle engraving.
Yeah.
The Valley Arts Council has just opened a new Main Street gallery in downtown Ansonia. It's a place where art and artists have come together to bring you special, one-of-a-kind gifts. Stop by for a visit to see our selection of handcrafted jewelry, pottery, photography, and paintings, all of which are created by local artists.
Are you a painter, sculptor, photographer, or interested in the arts? Join us.
For more information, visit us at thevalleyartscouncil.org or stop by our gallery on Main Street in downtown Ansonia.